Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is the Inside. Of course, we have come in a bit late. We are seeking your apology for that. And thank you so much for joining the Inside tonight. Of course, this is where we get to discuss deliberately and at length pressing issues and current affairs, where we discuss a range of issues from economy, politics, and I'll name them all. And tonight, of course, we get to delve deeply into the state of the nation, where the Kenya Medical Practitioner and Dentist Union declared that the doctor strike will kick off on Wednesday at midnight after the lapse of the 7-day strike notice, while announcing the commencement of the nationwide strike. The Secretary General, Dr. Davji Atela, said the government has not presented a readiness to address the grievances raised by the union and has failed to honor the 2017 collective bargaining agreement. Here is more on the same. Well, the move by a parliamentary committee to approve President William Ruto's appointment of chief administrative secretaries by approving a bill seeking to entrench the position in law has sparked many reactions among Kenyan citizens. The capping seeks to reflect the constitutional provisions on the number of people to be appointed. And of course, the details will also be provided.
Parliamentary committee has moved to regularize President William Ruto's appointment of chief administrative secretaries by approving a bill seeking to entrench the position in law. The Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, chaired by Tharaka Member of Parliament George Murugara, while approving the bill, proposed that the number of CASs be capped at 22, who will be appointed by the President upon recommendations of the Public Service Commission. This move has had many reactions from the members of the public.
That is necessary. In my view, it does not improve efficiency. The way the government is set up already is enough to move the country forward without extending the government in any way.
Kama wananchi wamelemewa kiasi, na pia hapo wakiweka CSs ingelipenda afikia president angalia watu wa chini kama wababa tumuone hapo, wa taxi tumuone hapo, na pia mtu ambaye ni mtu wa bodaboda at least mtu mmoja tumuone hapo.
The capping seeks to reflect constitutional provisions on the number of people to be appointed. Members of Parliament also proposed that the recommendations should consider regional and gender balance. The report will be subjected to debate and approval or rejection by the National Assembly's plenary. The financial implication will be higher, considering every CAS is entitled to a one-off mortgage payment of 35 million Kenyan shillings and 10 million Kenyan shillings car grant, adding a salary of 990 million Kenyan shillings. The taxpayers will additionally provide 3 million Kenyan shillings for inpatients and outpatient medical cover for a CAS.
The Kenya Medical Practitioners and the Dentists Union declared that the doctor strike will kick off on Wednesday at midnight after the lapse of the 7-day strike notice. While announcing the commencement of the nationwide strike, the Secretary General, Dr. Davji Atela, said the government has not presented a readiness to address the grievances raised by the union and has failed to honor the 2017 collective bargaining agreement. Here is more on the same.
Members of the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union have declared an indefinite nationwide strike from March 14th at midnight. The announcement follows a collapse in negotiations with the government over increasing human financial resources in the sector.
A strike is the only power that workers have. Withdrawal of labor and skills is the only way that a worker can compel a heartless, belligerent employer to come to the table to negotiate. Regrettably, the government has shown a lack of willingness to address these pressing concerns, leaving healthcare workers in a state of frustrations and dismay. It is with great disappointment and sadness that we announce the commencement of our nationwide strike from tonight, the 13th day of March at 00 hours.
Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union Secretary General Dr. Davji Atela said the government has not presented a readiness to address the grievances raised by the union. According to Atela, this conclusion comes after talks over promotions and intern postings with the Ministry of Health officials that failed to bear any fruit.
We have crossed the Rubicon and we're at a point of no return. The strike notice that was signed dated 6th of March 2024 expires tonight, and we advise our doctors across the country to begin discharging patients and referring them, because the government has been on strike for the last 7 years, and tonight we will join them fully.
During the protest, disruptions to healthcare services are likely, although emergency services are unlikely to be affected. Related protests are possible near hospitals, medical facilities, and government buildings. Occasional scuffles with security services are possible should protests occur. Disruptions could persist following the conclusion of the strike as the medical facilities deal with a backlog of patients.
And of course, we'll be continuing with these conversations on the state of the nation, even as we continue to give you more highlights on the things that actually are happening on the state of the nation. 2144 is our SMS line at Eugene Kwach. And of course, at GBS TV Africa, you get to delve deeply into this conversation. And as we continue, impeached Kisii Deputy Governor Robert Monda has pleaded not guilty to all 4 charges facing him at the Senate. The development came after the Senate clerk read out the charges at the start of an impeachment hearing at the Senate. In the case presented by Kisii County Assembly, Monda faces charges of gross violation of the Constitution, abuse of office, gross misconduct, and crimes under national law. The Assembly says the governor solicited a bribe of 800,000 from locals to help him secure a job for his son. It is said in the charges that Monda used his office to intimidate and cow his family into hiding, fearing for their lives in contravention of Section 34 of the Integrity Act 2012. They say Monda had continuously diverted county enforcement officers from their course of duty to work in his farm. Monda was represented by 3 lawyers led by senior lawyer Katwa Kigen and National Assembly Majority Whip Silvanus Osoro. Other lawyers are Wilkins Ochoki and Kelvin Michuki. The deputy governor has also lined up 6 witnesses in the case that could make or break his political career. The witnesses include 3 Kisii MCAs, Thomas Nyabaru, Amos Onderi, and Lilian Anyango. County Assembly, on the other hand, lined up 4 lawyers and 3 witnesses. The legal team is led by experienced lawyers Ndegwa Njiru, Elias Mutuma, Ndegwa Mwangi, and Anna Munyoki.
Shall who work under the governor's office, where I'm also the deputy to the governor. And so I indicated to Lucy, asking her if they had such kind of jobs, and she said yes.
So to that extent, you made contacts with Lucy confirming whether the job was available, correct?
That I did.
Thank you. Did you have a look at Lucy's affidavit appearing at page 263 of the bundle of document volume 1 by the County Assembly? Did you not? Page 263. 263. Did you have a look at that affidavit, Mr. Witness? Page 263 of the bundle of document volume 1.
Yes.
You confirmed that you made contacts with Lucy, correct?
That I've said yes.
And therefore the averments contained in her affidavit that you had a discussion about it are correct, yes?
No.
To that extent, they are correct that you made contacts with her in that respect, correct?
To that extent, yes.
Thank you. When did you loan the 500,000 shillings to Mr. Misati?
In October.
Do you have the evidence of the loan that you advanced, or you only have the evidence of repayment?
No, I don't have.
What do you have?
For what?
What do you have? The evidence of loaning or the evidence of repayment?
I have evidence of repayment, Mr. Speaker.
And there is a glaring lack of evidence of you advancing money to him, correct?
That's correct.
And you had Mr. Misati claiming that in terms of your financial status, you are doing badly, correct? It was his evidence.
That's incorrect, Mr. Speaker.
Did you hear him state?
I heard him say that.
So do you trust his evidence anymore? To that extent.
In this particular instance, I do not hold to it, Mr. Speaker, that particular statement.
So are you disowning your witness?
No, I'm not.
So what do you want the Senate to treat that piece of evidence to the extent that you are a pauper?
You want a yes or a no answer?
How do you want the Senate to treat that piece of evidence? And whom between you and your witness is lying?
None of us is lying, Mr. Speaker.
Yes?
Mr. Speaker, there is a general statement.
Mr. Witness, excuse me, Mr. Witness, I want you to take a deep breath and recollect yourself and answer the question. Who between the two of you is lying? Your witness or yourself?
Mr. Speaker, once again, I'm trying to answer the...
Go ahead. What is your answer?
Me.
What is your answer?
My friend, Mr. Misati, while standing here as a witness, talked about problems of politicians, and he said most of them have challenges in terms of money. And at that point, he indicated that I may be one of them.
So I'm asking, who between the two of you is lying? You have not answered the question.
Lying in what?
Mr. Misati alleges you're not doing well financially. You allege you are very well financially.
I've not said I'm doing very well financially.
Thank you. Let us go to
many other politicians.
It's okay. You have answered my question.
Poorly as the others.
You have answered my question.
Now, of course, we delve deeply into the discussion of the night as we get more insights on the state of the nation. And I think actually, if we can, joining us, of course, is Eugene Owade. If Eugene Owade is with us. Eugene, can you get me?
Yes, Eugene Kwach, I can hear you clearly.
Thank you so much. I can see you. You're looking sharp, Wakili. How's it going?
Everything is well. We thank God. Asante.
Yes, thank you so much. Wakili, I'd love us to begin this conversation with actually the last story that has aired, and that is on the story of the impeachment of the deputy governor. And if you look at actually what has happened, he was actually found guilty when the Senate actually found him guilty and upheld his impeachment. You remember, he had been impeached by the members of County Assembly initially. And now the Senate has actually upheld the impeachment with 39 senators voting yes on the charge of gross violation and of course of the Constitution. Generally, before we delve deeply into this matter, what do you think about this particular issue?
Well, Coach, at the end of the day, what I've usually argued is that having impeachment processes, they're very, very much important in terms of building our constitutional democracy and really testing the limits of our governance systems. You do realize that we have a whole chapter 6 in our constitution, which constantly has to be tested, either through the courts or through institutional organs like Parliament and Senate. And the position of the Senate in this case, Coach, is that the Senate is the custodian of devolution under the Constitution of Kenya 2010. So this process is very much in order. Of course, there have been some cases around impeachment processes. It's not the first time we are seeing a deputy governor being presented before the Senate with an impeachment motion. Neither is it the first time we are seeing a county governor being presented before the Senate on a similar motion. So it's very much in order. And at the end of the day, what we get from it is that by testing the limits of Chapter 6, we are improving on our governance, both on our governance systems and basically our morality, because governance goes beyond the black text of the law. It also goes back to character. So it tests the character of the individuals we elect to the office, and it also gives us as citizens a chance to really rethink about our choices. It's not correct that oftenly when we vote, we always make the right choices. Elections gives impeachment processes give us a chance to really look at everything from another perspective. Thank you, Coach.
Let's ask you again. Well, if you look at the whole conversations around impeachment of governors or deputy governors, we have had quite a series, and of course, many of them. And this has actually elicited a lot of questions around the Constitution, because sometimes we have had critics saying that actually people have actually, or rather politicians have used sometimes the Constitution in a wrong way. I don't know whether you think that to this extent the Constitution has actually worked greatly, and actually with the senators, do you commend them for the job they have done? Of course, we even saw one of the politicians from the minority chief whip actually acting as one of the lawyers of the deputy governor, and yet we did not see their side winning. So can we say that maybe the Constitution is maybe being practiced well, if I can say?
Well, Coach, there's a very broad provision under our Constitution and relevant statutes on what it really means to go through the impeachment process. So I'll really draw the first general legal framework for impeachment is under Article 174 of the Constitution, which basically talks about having checks and balances at the devolution level. And how do you check these people? You check our county governor and deputy governors through an impeachment motion right from the county assembly level to the Senate, and then you can again escalate it actually. And in this case, my honest opinion is that we're on the right path. The Constitution as at 2024 is now 13 years to say the least, because we are not past the 14th year. So we're already 13 years, but we've seen a significant development in our jurisprudence, a significant development on what good governance means, a significant development on the scope of Chapter 6. Chapter 6 of the Constitution is basically a charter on how we should really behave, on how state and public officers should really act once we give them that power to lead or govern over us. In this case, Quach, one unique thing that happened is that as compared to the previous impeachment processes or impeachment motions before the Senate, this time we have seen actual evidence being presented before the senators to enable them make that decision. You would really notice that the deputy governor was found guilty on all the 4 charges that were brought before him. These charges are not brought in vain. They are provided within our constitutional framework. You have gross misconduct, you have abuse of office, and other related charges, which would constitute a contravention of our constitutional charter. In this case, the deputy governor was bound not only to act within the law as it is, but to also evidence that they are morally and legally upright. Remember, state offices or public positions are exercised in public trust. Any public officer is supposed not only to demonstrate that they're within the law, but they're supposed to show a good example to young people like me who are aspiring to one day get into leadership positions. So this time, I can tell you for a fact that the Senate got it right. What does it then mean for the county government of Kisii? The first thing that it means, which is very personal to the deputy governor, is that now he loses all benefits. He won't be paid a salary. and any other benefits that you would have been entitled. The second thing that I want us to look at is that now there's one recourse to this. The deputy governor can still go to court, and they can go to court and contest the substantive or the procedural aspects of this entire impeachment process. So he still has a route out of this, but we wait to see, because we have not seen whether there's an appeal before court or not. Two, what does it then mean to the governor or to the larger Kisii County? The Supreme Court has actually looked at a similar case before. There was a petition in 2018, the Speaker of County Assembly of Embu, which went up to the Supreme Court level. And the Supreme Court says, or rather it gave a procedure on what happens after an impeachment process. The governor from yesterday has 18 days really to nominate another deputy governor. After the 18 days, the proposal or the nominated person would then be forwarded, that proposal would be forwarded to the County Assembly of Kisii to really consider and either approve or reject such nomination within a period of 60 days. After then, we would then sit down and say, let us wait and see the future of Kisii County. So that is where we are approaching. On the downside, Coach, if you ask me, this impeachment motion was quite an interesting one. We saw families, two different families, being pitted against each other, which is really not a legal issue, but it's a community, it's a social, it's a cultural issue, and to be honest, I wouldn't advise us to really go back to such a position. It really shows you that even legal processes like impeachment motions, they have an adverse effect, both positive and adverse effects, on not only the governance, but also on how we relate with each other. I don't know the future of the Monda family. I may not know the future of the deputy governor's family, but I know for a fact that Kisii County has greatly won unless the deputy governor goes to court and challenges the substantive and the procedural aspects of that impeachment motion. Coach, back to you.
Thank you so much, Wakili. But again, there's a question that I have. You see, constitutionally, we know that the deputy governor and the governor are tied to the hip, even when they contest for the same, they do it under single ticket. Now, I understand that this could be quite an unprecedented one. And maybe apart from just insinuating or telling us shallow what it could mean for the deputy governor, maybe you can delve deeply and tell us generally, number one, why can't they all go home if maybe there's some gross, maybe he's found with some gross violation of the Constitution, or rather maybe he has been impeached. Why aren't they now tied at the hip at this juncture? And again, I understand that the deputy governor actually deputizes the governor, meaning that the governor, when in his absentia, actually, the deputy governor can take over, because I understand they do not have duties specifically for the deputy governor. So, at what point do we have maybe can we say that now the deputy governor has been found with gross violation, because he should actually support the governor and not maybe act on his own? Maybe there is something that maybe some people may also don't understand, and maybe you can also delve deeply a bit into it so that we can get to understand it.
Well, Coach, just to start you off, this is one of the arguments that has been raised severally. But you see, under our Constitution of Kenya 2010, we have no such provision, but rather Chapter 6, which is the main test or main grounding upon which impeachment processes are built upon and really governed, it acts personally. It does not act collectively. If right now the governor, and you would really note keenly that yesterday, when some witnesses were presented before the Senate, part of the contention by most senators was that the governor was not on trial. Had the governor been in trial, then we would have reached a different conclusion. What do I mean? I mean that even when the deputy governor sins, such sins cannot be revisited upon the governor, because in as much as you are elected on the same ticket, when you are tested against Chapter 6 of the Constitution, when you are tested against the provisions of the County Governments Act, you were tested personally. The law comes to you personally. It doesn't come to the collective of the ticket. Right now, and also you need to really look at this other aspect. There has to be continuity. There has to be continuity. Even if today it was the governor on the stand and the governor is impeached, there is no legal or statutory justification under our existing laws which would justify why both of them should go home. Had it been there, then right now we would be talking about a different scenario. That would be my position, Kwaji.
Thank you so much. Of course.
And just to add a final issue, Kwacha. Let me remind you about what used to happen during the immediately post-independence Kenya, and then under the Jomo Kenyatta government, and then under the late Daniel Toroitich arap Moi. Before we really had a reformed or restructured constitutional body, we had a president who could hire and fire anyone. But as opposed to that, right now, before you hire and fire what used to be a vice president and is currently a deputy president, is that you would have to base it on some legal, constitutional, and factual groundings. You cannot hire and fire in vain. Hiring and firing cannot happen in a lacuna. There has to be a reason why you hire and fire. And part of those reasons are the four grounds that were presented before the Senate. Back then, the president, or because we can't really say we had counties, the president was the alpha and omega. Power and authority was centralized. The president's word was final. If the president woke up during primetime news and decided that I'm tired, I don't want to work anymore with my vice president, they'd be sent home. But in a fundamental contrast to that, in a fundamental shift from what we had under the 1969 Constitution and under the repealed Constitution, right now you can only impeach or remove anybody from authority based on constitutional, statutory, and factual groundings. So there is a whole process to it. And one challenge that is really happening, which is affecting devolution, and something I really hope one day we can discuss deeply, is that there is no clarity on the roles of the deputy governor or the deputy president if you take it to the national level. And this sometimes make them appear subordinate, really, which they are to the president, and vulnerable to the politics and really the underside of our governance system. This is something that should be reformed. It should be clear that a deputy governor does XYZ roles, a deputy president does XYZ roles. That is one area that we really need to look at. Two, which is very final, we should not ignore that at the background of impeachment processes, there's a lot of politics. There are party politics, political party politics at the devolved level and at the national level. And there are politics between the deputy governor and the governor. This is somebody who may succeed you in case of anything. These are people, these are politicians, they're approaching 2027, they are realigning. But can we just advise our leaders to sit back and operate collaboratively for the best interest of the people, Kwach? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wakili. I believe that that was quite insightful as we got to delve deeply into the impeachment of the deputy governor of Kisii. But of course, Wakili, there have been a lot of politics in Kisii of late, even that pitted the governor of Kisii to the minority leader, and that is also a member of parliament. And of course, I'll even wonder how going forward that will affect how maybe the appointment or the nomination of the next Kisii deputy governor will be bearing that we have just seen the minority, the majority leader actually supporting the deputy governor. But of course, these are some of the conversations that we have today on the state of the nation as we get to delve deeply. Of course, this is matters current affairs as we get to see what is there that is for you. And we get to the stories. Of course, when we come back, we're going to look at the KMPDU strike, which of course we also looked at, and the CAS appointment. And of course, we're going to have conversations around the CAS appointment by the parliamentary commissioner. So still more stories to come. We're taking a very quick short break. 21144 is our SMS line at GBS TV Africa, at Quach Official. That is where you get to find us.
Hi guys, karibuni sana to another amazing episode of the Youth Hub, the show that gets your groove on. I am yours, Rachel Gambo, founder of Sober Living Youth Summits, chairperson of Graceful Youth Recovery Center.
Yeah, and I'm a legal professional, of course. I'm also a volunteer lawyer.
Women are strong and resilient. They go through so many things. Of course, they do.
For you see this point that women have reached in terms of emancipation and being empowered, it all started with dialogue and voicing themselves out. You understand?
So the son has a lot that he needs to pack in one single suitcase. Lakini haziingi, like, and I can just like two things already jam. People to just keep standing up for what is right. If there's any injustice, address it.
No voice or no action is too small. It starts from somewhere.
Office of the First Lady and the Second Lady, I want to applaud what they're doing because they've come out strongly to address mainly women issues. And they say if you want to change the community, educate a woman, or support a woman, because like she said earlier, women are nurturers, they tend, and literally the world is in the palm of your hands. It's literally
like there's such a mind shift that has come with Gen Z. I don't even think myself as a Gen Z has realized it. Like, but there's such a mindset.
Kwa hakika karibu mtazamaji wangu wa GBS TV mahali popote ulipo. Hii ni GBS TV Jumatatu nikiwa
tunataka actually Isili iwe full 24-hour economy jinsi ilivyo wakati huu. Mbekse.
Yes, jele walikusema nini?
Inamaanisha 5
10.
Yote 10.
Yes. Mbwetsi. Hiyo ni lugha ya vijana.
Ni lugha ya mtaa.
But we have a bigger role to play as Kenyans. Change of mind. I know GBS unafuatanga hiyo mambo ya mindset, so it's high time we begin to change the way we think and how we do things. Nikiangalia sasa mahali imepitishwa jana hiyo bill, hiyo motion, then in terms of the executive already walikuwa na mpangilio yao. So is the interest of the executive, kwa sababu kuna project walikuwa wameweka.
It means that sasa disaster imetokea, labda nyumba imechomeka, kama nini imefanyika, we have disaster. Korogosho kuna disaster, hata hiyo njia ni disaster. So sisi tuliambia county government of Nairobi lazima waweke mikakati ya kupeana hizi chakula. Si ati saa zile kumechomekewa ndio unapelekea mtu blanketi, unapelekea mtu unga, no.
Everywhere, GBS.
Thank you so much and welcome back to the Inside. Of course, we continue with this conversation, and of course, there is the KMPDU strike. That is something that we're going to delve and look at. And of course, also the Cabinet Assistant Secretaries. And that is a position that was much contested for. Well, if you get the history of the 22 CAS appointment, the 22 CAS appointment by parliamentary committee, the CS position was actually created in 2018 by President Uhuru Kenyatta, and of course abolished in 2022 by the Public Service Commission. And of course, the High Court actually found it quite unconstitutional. So we have had this conversation for quite a long time on the importance of the CAS position, the Chief Administrative Secretary. And some of the points of contentions have been, what is really the CAS people doing? Because actually some people have thought that it's quite content with the position of the public, the PSS, and of course that of the CSS. So those are the major points of contentions on the position of the CSS. So these are conversations that actually we are going to seek and look deeply into, because we are going to ask ourselves very critical questions that about the amendments. Which specific amendments should be actually met now by the National Assembly or the Parliamentary Commission actually? Which are these amendments that actually they should propose to the National Government Coordination Act of 2013 in relation to the reinstatement of the CAS position? And of course, how do these amendments address the concerns that have actually been addressed or been raised now by the courts and even by people concerning the CAS positions? And of course, on the duplication of the responsibilities assigned to the CAS and the PSS. We also ask very critical questions that now on the CAS appointments, how do they actually, or what will they imply? What are the implications now to the efficiency and the effectiveness of the work, maybe at the national government, appointment of the CSS positions? What do they portend actually? How do they contribute now to the government, the national government? How effective are they? Do they actually increase the effectivity? Now, because actually we have talked about the budget increasing because of such things, now cutting of budget. And that is, of course, where we are going to bring in austerity measures. Where is it important actually to cut this position off because of maybe cutting budget so that Kenyans who have actually been crying of the high cost, rather the economy, can actually feel better. So these are conversations that we are having on specifically the appointment of the CAS position and being introduced again, even after the court had declared them quite unconstitutional. Well, we will continue with these conversations, and of course, even as we get to look at the KMPDU strike, which is very important as well, where we realized that the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union declared the doctor strike, which was supposed to actually kick off, and we had seen that quite a number of places, so many counties in Nyanza, we're seeing that so many members of the KMPDU had actually strike. So what do this mean? And going forward, even devolving the health, what does it really mean, devolving now the health unit? Because we realized that in the constitution of the 2010, the health was actually devolved. And so health being devolved, meaning this responsibility was majorly on the governance, on the counties. So what will it actually, what does it portend going forward, as we continue seeing these strikes? What has it achieved? Does devolving health as a unit, has it achieved, being enshrined in the Constitution, has it achieved what it was meant to do? These are very pertinent and critical questions that actually we are seeking answers to in the state of the nation. Again, on the talk, we have on other issues, of course, we still continue with the discussion, a conversation that is quite very prominent in the ears of many. And this conversation is around Raila Odinga's bid of the AU. Raila Odinga, as we have known him, has been an enigma in the Kenyan politics, as he has contested for times without number. Of course, to be specific, he has contested for around 5 times. Raila the 5th, and of course, he has always come up with new ways of finding himself at the politics again, to be a forerunner in the Kenyan politics. But as things continue evolving, and as matters in politics continue evolving, Raila Odinga has become of age. And the major questions are that who will inherit Raila Odinga? Raila Odinga, in his manner and of course in his element has found another way actually to come back and bounce in politics. And this time around, of course, he is contesting for the AU chairmanship. Now, what will actually this mean, or what will this bid portend to not just the politics of Kenya, but even to the Luo politics? Because we understand that Raila has always been and immensely stood as the leader of the Luo community. So how does this bid actually affect even the Luo leadership? How does it even affect the figures, and how does it generally affect the political landscape of Kenya? What will happen? And that is a very, very, very important question that, of course, we are going to get to look at. And, of course, we are also going to ask that what could this translate to Azimio leadership? What will this also mean to the opposition leadership generally? Because we understand that there was a NADCO document that actually had actually been formed, and the government and the opposition leader were to act on this. Some of the proposals that actually had been given was that there was going to be the office of the official opposition leader. And so these are conversations that people are asking ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the state of the nation. And as we continue delving deeply into these issues, because here on the Insight, we give you a critical analysis on these issues. I want us to talk to Wakili Owade on some of these critical issues. And I just want us to start with the CAS appointment, the 22, the appointment of the CSS. I don't know what it means, because the court had actually declared this unconstitutional. But going forward, they would wish to actually reinstate the CS position. And so this has again sparked debate. So we ask you as a lawyer, or what if you can maybe get me, tell me, what does this actually portend, the reinstatement of the CAS positions? And bearing that we have had contentions around the CS positions, what are these amendments that actually have to be made for this CS position not to be unconstitutional, as it has been made by the courts of law? Wade, you can get me right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think the correct position from where we can start is in beginning this conversation, let us look at where we are and where we have been, and then where we are going. So where are we? Where we are currently is that this is not the first time that the position of the CAS or the government has attempted to introduce the position of the CAS. It has happened during the tenure of the former president Uhuru Kenyatta, and right now again, the same issue is cropping up under the NADCO report. And there is a bill before the Judicial Legal Affairs Committee, which is under the domicile of Parliament. So this is an issue that, one, the position generally has been that there has to be a recommendation from the Public Service Commission on a minimum number. And what minimum number? Because the question of how many has brought out the issue of why do we need to spend money on this number of people, and why do we really need to have this? What are they really addressing? Initially, we saw a number of 50 CASs, that there was a proposal to have 50. But the Public Service Commission is under law allowed only to recommend or propose the appointment of 22 CAS, nothing more than that. And why are we saying this? It is because Kenyans have to be told, or have to be made aware of what significance this position is going to bring in. So, what does this mean in terms of our law and our constitution and our future? One, I want to tell you for a fact, that these proposals are what we call unconstitutional, void ab initio. They're void from the very first instance they were brought in. Why are they void or unconstitutional? they're void or unconstitutional, both from the substantive part and from the procedural part, or based on practice. Why am I saying this? The way these people are trying to reintroduce this issue has been looked at previously by the court of law. Justice Edwin Ogudi actually dissented and provided a grounding and justified why such an introduction, even through an act of parliament, as currently we are debating, would be unconstitutional. And why did they say that? One, there's been this argument that introducing CASs would lead to a duplication, or it would mean we are duplicating the roles of the not only the cabinet secretaries, but the roles of the principal secretaries. We already have principal secretaries who are a link, who are the substantive link between the cabinet secretary and the people. It is already there. Why do we need these people?
Yes.
Two.
Yes, Wakili.
Two, can you hear me?
I can get you, Wakili.
Okay, asante. So we proceed.
Yeah, we just have to wrap up a bit because on this issue, because we still have other issues to discuss.
Okay, let me just fast track that issue so that we close it up, all right?
Okay.
So what that would then mean is that we cannot introduce a third tier of what looks like assistant ministers, which were really under the old regime. And even that dissent that we had, we were told that we cannot have more than 22 CASs, even if we were to appoint them. We can't have more than 22. And to be sure, again, such a proposal cannot come through an act of parliament. There has to be a constitutional amendment. If you are to disturb the structure of the executive as currently is under Chapter 16 of the Constitution of Kenya, then you have to bring in a constitutional amendment. There is no route to do that unless we go through a constitutional a referendum. So this issue, it's a separate issue. Let us look at it broadly. Let us look at it keenly, and the politicians and legislators should really read our decisions from the courts, surely. This is something that has been before the judiciary. It has been resolved. They've said you can't go past the cap of 22. Even if you're to do so, go through a referendum, Kwach. I think we can go to the next issue.
I think, Wakili, there is a critical issue actually that I would love us also to look at, and that is on the strike, the doctor strike, the KMPDU strike.
Yes.
So we understand that actually the health was actually majorly was actually also is also handled by the county government. I don't know how devolution how devolution has worked to the success of this, because we have had these strikes since. So what do you make of this? And actually, very critically, the KMPDU has always have some claims and actually things that they want to be done. And one of them is to create a commission specifically for the doctors, which will look into the employment of doctors and things like that. I don't know what you think about it, even as we get to look at what generally this could even portend and how it will even affect the citizens of this country, because we believe that health is very critical and very important. Maybe in just 2 words, kindly, because we have another issue as we wrap up, sir.
Counties have been fundamental. It was a very good initiative and a good proposal to devolve health functions. The main problem has been administration and management of especially human resource. And then we also have other cross-cutting issues like infrastructure, then health financing. Generally, what is affecting, what has contributed much to the current strike is the lack of implementation of a 2017 collective bargaining agreement that was agreed upon with doctors. And largely, we really need consensus. The court has pronounced itself. There is a stay notice, but doctors are still adamant. Courts had really advised that for doctors, they need to sit down. There has been an argument in 2021 that while they have a right to fair labor practices like striking under Article 41 of the Constitution, such a right must be balanced against the right of citizens to enjoy continuous and even emergency medical treatment in our health facilities. So doctors, even if they strike, they need to give us a minimum level of services that we can enjoy even during their strike. The final issue, Coach, is that Kenyans, and this is a very big issue. Kenyans do not appreciate reform initiatives. The question of health, establishing a health commission, that's not the first time it's coming up. It was there as a proposal under the Building Bridges initiative, which most people shut down based on political grounds, not really legal grounds. Even the court only questioned the process, not the substance. So it was there. We can still implement it.
Wakili, thank you so much for that. But I want us to, because we have less than 3 minutes to end this conversation. And yes. Wakili, let me just ask you, because it's very critical and important that we have this conversation as well. We were talking about the Raila's AU bid. And we understand how Raila has actually been an important figure in the country. What will actually his bid portend and mean to, what will it generally even mean to us? When I say us, it means Kenyan politics. How will it maybe affect the political landscape, the Azimio leadership, and potentially even the agreement that they had, the NADCO agreement, that is between the government and even the opposition? And generally, how will this determine the future politics of Kenya?
Coach, you've removed me from the field of law to the field of politics, which is quite interesting. But generally, the appointment or election of His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga as an AU Commission chair, that is, if it happens, which we pray it does, will be quite fundamental. The former Prime Minister is a fundamental figure, not only within the country, but even continentally. It's not the first time he has held a regional or continental post, and we have seen the level of contribution that he has made both locally and regionally. So it's not a matter of how he'll go about it. How does it affect our politics? There will be quite significant ramifications. Of course, in terms of who leads ODM, who leads Azimio, then who do we even have a functional opposition? But Coach, remember, this country of the opposition is not about Raila Odinga. There are also other able political leaders who should now come up, who should really rise and stand on their ground. Let them rise and show us the way. The country is not necessarily fixated on Raila's position within. He can still contribute positively out there and again contribute positively within the local politics. It doesn't necessarily have to be in terms of being actively in elective politics or actively in opposition politics. ODM has been there as a party for a very long time. It has its own internal organs. Azimio as a political entity has its own internal organs. They can run themselves with or without Raila Odinga. That is my position, Coach.
Thank you so much, Wakili, for that insight. Of course, it has been a great insight as we got to delve deeply into issues that matter in the state of the nations. We're talking about the doctor strike. We also delve a bit into what does even pertain to the devolution of health services. We have, of course, talked about the MCAs, the KCK, the deputy governor's impeachment. Actually, the Senate has upheld the impeachment of the deputy governor of Kisii, what that will portend. We have also deliberately looked into other issues that, of course, matter, including Raila's AU bid, and what could that potentially mean to the political landscape of Kenya and even Africa. Thank you so much, Eugene Owadi, who is a legal advisor and a lawyer, for joining us for this conversation. As we have already said, 2144 is our SMS line, and you get us as GBS TV Africa at Kwach Official. It has been indeed a great conversation where we get to delve deeply into issues that matters. We tell stories from everywhere. Of course, those are issues that matter to you. Well, we've come to the end of this conversation. Again, my name is Eugene Ochieng Kwach, and on behalf of everyone who has made this a success, wish you good night and see you next time, next Friday. A good night.
Everywhere, GBS.